Thank you so much for being here. Chris, Erez, and Mohammed, thank you for being a part of this discussion with me. So we just heard Zain talk a little bit about sort of what is happening right now in the world right now. But I wanted to start here. When we think about the future of food security, because all of you are so involved in this discussion more broadly, should we think about it in terms of improving the existing food supply system, the supply chains that are here now, or completely uprooting it? Because each of you have a different take on sort of what the future could mean. Erez, do you want to start?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me. So we at Infarm, we're building a global farming network. And when we think about the food supply chain, we don't think about improving it. We think about redesigning it from A to Z completely. So if you look on the numbers, the UN predict that by 2050, we will need to increase production of food by 70%, or alternatively find a new planet. We at Infarm, we took that challenge, we embraced that challenge, and we want to find new ways to grow food in harsh climates, in climates that are unsuitable for agriculture, and we want to do it while using resources in more efficient way, and ultimately creating a new food system which is much more resilient, much more sustainable, and bringing extreme value to the end consumers, if you like, which is this is our mission, to bring premium produce, more nutritional produce, and to bring it in affordable prices to everyone.
Mohammed, what do you think?
Well, first I want to thank our Qatari brothers and sisters and the government for this invitation and for this wonderful get-together. This is a great opportunity to share experiences, because basically development is all about sharing good experiences that deliver goods. Food security and what do we do about it is an age-long challenge humanity has always had. I think it is important to remember that food is also related to jobs. Farms still hold a lot of the population. And our membership of the Islamic Development Bank of 57 countries, 50% of employment is in agriculture. In some countries, it's up to 75% of employment is in agriculture. So when we look at agriculture, we don't look just at food, as critically important as it is. But we want food to be produced by people on the land, so they have jobs, they have security, and then hopefully they will improve, so there will be a bit of surplus that will go to the urban dwellers, so they will also have food on the table. So to us, it's a cycle, and we have to work with the farmers and with the governments and with NGOs and other organizations to try to enhance that ecosystem. Otherwise, we could end up with a perfect storm. And it's looming now with all the drought that we have in East Africa, with all the increase in prices because of the conflict, shortages here and there. We have serious challenges, but we have to look at them holistically, and we at the Islamic Development Bank are doing a lot to do that, and I'll have a chance maybe to mention some of it later.
And when we talk about improving the lives of farmers, Chris, this is something that you and your team at Tingo are very passionate about, because as Mohammed said, it is a part of the overall ecosystem. Can you just dig into that for us?
Well, look, the farmer is, and always will be, in any story about food security, the hero of the story, right? There's no point in talking about food or food production unless you actually include the farmer at the center of that. But what we do instead is we exploit the farmer. And what we do instead is we charge him huge interest rates, and the highest interest rates fall on the poorest of us all. And yet we still expect those people to then feed us. If you transport food over a couple of weeks, you earn more than a farmer who tends and cultivates food over many months or grows trees over many years. So not only is the supply chain broken, there's other things that are broken, but we can't talk about the supply chain without talking about, as His Excellency has said, without talking about the obvious, COVID and the war in Eastern Europe. Now, those things are not the problem, they're symptomatic of the problem. They're showing us where the clinch points are, you know, because the reality of it is that Ukraine is half the size of South Africa. So how can it feed the whole of Africa, yet Africa cannot feed Africa? You know, so these are the things we've got to look at, and you know, and you know, re-greening the areas that Your Excellency works in. You know, the Sahel area and stuff like that. There's so much that can be done when we're working together. But this is about a whole change in ethos from just-in-time supply to on-demand supply to onshoring, and things like vertical farming are going to be key to that.
Is it key to that, Erez? I mean, can you get into that? Because there is some concern with vertical farming, in particular in terms of energy concerns, right? I mean, we're dealing with a climate crisis in addition to a food insecurity crisis. So is vertical farming the solution, the be-all, end-all?
It's one of the solutions, of course. So with each and every farm that we deploy in the field, we are saving precious land, we save water, we can cultivate food with 95% less water, which is, of course, for regions like the Gulf area or Africa, it's something that we need to look at. So we look on how to bring sustainability and embed it in our farms, in our company. And of course, energy is one of the biggest points and one of the biggest challenges. Here, we can harvest the power of the sun. In some areas, we harvest the power of the wind or the water. And I can tell you that we are one of the first vertical farming companies in the world to commit on science-based targets, and we're going to transform the entire farming network currently to work on renewable energy by next year. And beside the infrastructure, we're also looking on how to grow plants with less resources. So we also look on the photosynthesis activities. We're collecting significant amount of data, very quality data on plants. This year, we're already going to reach more than 100 billion data points on plants themselves, so we can grow the plants in a more efficient way and use energy just in a more efficient way. This is a journey, and I can tell you we cracked the code on the fruit and vegetables, but we're also now looking on staple production, how to grow wheat and rice. And if you really look 10 years, 20 years ahead, it's inevitable that the field is going to move into the indoor, so we can supply locally and also ensure that there is a consistent in quality and to supply the people food.
Like Qatar, you mentioned.
Qatar is definitely an interesting opportunity for us. It's a very unique place to start and think about how to make Qatar not just economic center, but also an agriculture center, if you like, for the region, and change the mentality from an importer potentially to an exporter. And in Qatar, 90% is imported from other places in the world. So there is a unique opportunity to transform and bring farms to produce local fresh produce. And I can tell you that we are working on a very big farm, a mega farm in Qatar, to be open already for next year. We are very excited about this, of course.
Mohammed, is that the type of climate-smart agriculture that you and your team are investing in? I know that's part of your medium-term approaches.
We're looking at that, but also we're cognizant of the fact that we have, in our member countries, we have 25% of the world's total population. We have 25% of the world's arable land. We have also 13% of the total renewable water resources, and yet we're starving. So the challenge is really how to mobilize these resources and get this development paradigm to work in our favor. This is very important. We have countries that have plenty of land, plenty of water, and plenty of population, but they are importing from Kansas or from Ukraine. That is, we should pause and stop and think about these things. And we at the Islamic Development Bank, we try to convey these messages and we try to discuss it in such conferences, but also in closed door rooms. But there is, the development challenges are very serious, and it's not lack of technology, it's really a lack of transparency, lack of dedication to really get those countries out of those poverty areas. And some countries have tried and have succeeded. So it's not really such a rocket science, but we really need to get on with the challenges of development and creating the ecosystem that will keep people on the farms, at least as long as they're not needed in the urban areas, and let them produce the goods that they need and the urban population needs. And then, of course, those countries that have smaller land mass and have high-tech content can go for all of those creative ideas that will supply even more food.
Yeah, I think, Your Excellency is completely correct. It's not rocket science. If the way to build out a successful ecosystem, farm ecosystem, is to just show young people that they can make a profit and they can enjoy it. And at the moment, that's impossible, right? So most people live in a subsistence situation where they can't feed their families, they can't educate themselves, and so they have to look for prospects elsewhere. So if we work out a methodology whereby some of the value, more of the value, stays with the farmer, so that he actually wants to grow for us, we'd have more food. It's a logical scenario. One follows the other. And I think that's our duty as people who are involved in this industry, to actually ensure that we work towards that and stop thinking that massive big farms produce better, more food. They don't. They don't even produce cheaper food. The best food with the highest value is smallholders who are well paid, and they're in any way against, in any stage against a subsidized large farm. They're a better economic return. And we've just got to believe that globally and stop putting the rug away from the feet of those who are trying to do it locally.
So where do the solutions start then? Because, of course, that makes sense, but there still are these large farms, right? So how do the small farm holders empower themselves?
Economic empowerment is a very important issue. And actually, we in the Islamic Development Bank have been dedicating a lot of time and effort and money to do that. And for economic empowerment, mostly it's women and the youth that either suffer the most or have the highest to gain from all of that. And we're doing a lot of that now. I mean, we have programs in Africa and Uzbekistan and other countries in collaboration with the governments and bringing to bear all the good experiences that have been done. And we have a huge program in agricultural development. We have more than $20 billion actually portfolio in our countries. But the dedicated programs for economic empowerment are growing, and we have what we call Lives and Livelihoods program, $2.5 billion that has been fully utilized, and we're going now for a new LLF2 because it has been delivering really some good results. And we encourage other multilateral development institutions to follow suit, and we'll be happy for all of those that want to participate with us in these programs. But let me also mention, because the world is waiting to see who's doing what also, instead of pointing fingers, I just came last night from Vienna, where the Arab Coordination Group and the OPEC Fund had a meeting. And we as a group, the Arab Coordination Group, which is made up of the Arab regional and multilateral institutions, have committed a minimum of $10 billion to deal with this very serious looming food shortage and hunger. And in some of the areas, some countries, it's just the rise in prices. In some countries, like in the Sahel and in East Africa, it's really a very serious drought and starvation and famine issues. And we need to mobilize these resources and use them as efficiently as possible, because that has always been the victim of a lot of the work in development economics.
From the private sector. What about from the public sector, Erez?
So one of the solutions, of course, is to diversify and build farms in different sizes and shapes, different techniques, different methods. So this is one element of this. Of course, we need to diversify the sources of energy, and we need to maybe think about what we are growing, and not think about it from a supply chain perspective, but think about what we actually need to eat, so it could be also more efficient on that side. We need to reduce significant amount of waste, which we are producing a lot of food, but it's not even coming to our plate. We're talking about 1,500 to 2,000 kilometers between farm to plate, and 40–50% is wasted. So we need to look holistically, and there is many different things to improve our current supply chain. And if you look on what we do at Infarm, we are thinking about how to redesign it and how to deploy farms that are also accessible to anyone. So anyone can grow, which ultimately will create more farmers, maybe not the romantic farmer that we have in mind, but modern farmers that use AI to grow plants. And this way we can increase efficiency by hundreds of percentages. And yeah, this is what we are working on. And I truly believe that once other parties come in from, if it's policymakers, if it's governments, and together we create an ecosystem and invest significant amount of resource, we can create a new food infrastructure worldwide to feed the people.
And a lot of this has been focused on the long term, right? But when we think about the short term, we think about the supply disruptions that are happening right now. And for many families, the next meal is really all that they're focused on. What needs to happen immediately in the next, in the short term for things to change, for people, for us to not go further down on this path?
I think we've got to look at ways of disintermediating interest rates from this system in a way in which there's fair amounts of money are paid for things. In Africa, the average farmer pays 25 to 40% a year in interest. So why does he want to grow food? Every time he grows any food, he bets the whole farm. So we've got to get to a position where there's easy access to the kinds of funds that are coordinated to the purchase of the goods as well as to the growing. It costs about a third of the amount that it costs to sell the goods, to actually grow the goods. So your inputs, your seeds, your seedlings, your pesticides, your fertilizers, they cost about a third of what the actual amount that you're going to sell your goods at the end of the day are for. We know that. So why don't we coordinate the two things, have actually systems that actually look at what the sale is as well as what the cost of production is, and create financial systems that actually support farmers and stop this sort of the price gouging, which destroys the actual farmer who wants to grow. If we did that within a couple of seasons, we'd be already there, because it only takes a season to grow something. The land is there, the fertilizer's there. Urea is a big commodity here in Qatar. All these things are available, but it's the way that they land and arrive with the farmer that's the problem.
Do you put that on the banks?
It's the way we look at the world. We don't look at Africa as a resource, save for for minerals and things we pull up. We don't see it as a resource for food. We see it as a victim in the food game. But actually, 60% of the world's cultivatable arable land is in Africa. So if we support the farmers that are there, don't harvest them, but help them harvest their food, then actually we've got a chance to actually feed ourselves. If Ukraine can feed so much of the world, what could Africa do? Thank you.
Erez, what do you think? I mean, in terms of short-term solutions.
First of all, I completely agree. It's all about how to incentivize the system to grow more food. And obviously, if you take there's the financial incentives. I think if governments, if there will be certain funds, will step in immediately, will understand that there is, first of all, there is a real opportunity, financial opportunity, but also there is a real need for us to come together and start to cultivate food to feed our own countries, but also to think about our neighbors, and even far more from that. Once we are stepping into that rhythm, we can start and build farm at scale. The technology is there. It's extremely scalable technology. There is many more methods, and there is also the passion of people like us to do that. So it's really about bringing people together and do it very, very fast. I can tell you that we are working with different NGOs and different policymakers and different companies, and we're going to bring everyone together to COP27, and we're going to discuss also about how to feed the growing population, but also how our plate is looking like, how about our diets, and how those diets are also going to change the way we're going to feed ourselves in the future. So we're doing a lot of work on this. On the short term, it's more about us coming together.
Mohammed, I'd love to get your final word, and especially when we think about the Africa free trade in terms of, using the continent as
I will, but I would like just to add, shark lenders are all over the world, and we know that they are partly the culprits.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't be there if there were good government regulations in the financial markets. I'm a former central bank governor, and I know how that works. So it is very important that the governments also take upon themselves creating the ecosystem for these small lenders to be able to go out and multiply the amounts of money that they have, and they are lending to these small farmers. I think in the short term, we need to supplement the reserves or the stocks of food in these countries. Some of them have gone really low. And this is really where short-term financing comes into the picture. And what I mentioned about the Arab Coordination Group commitment of 10 billion, some of it will go into that. And we're already, the ITFC of the Islamic Development Bank is already working with countries to supplement their ability to rebuild their reserves. But also there are other things that we have been doing and not getting sufficient attention, and they really plug a big gap. We have been involved in Africa with the rice chain production. It is amazing how well it has been doing, and we've already lent money to 3 countries, and 2 countries are coming up. I think you have in Africa something called the cassava. I think this is a very popular food, and we've been lending, and farms are coming up, and there is a value chain that has been identified, and people are associating with it, and an ecosystem is developing. So we need to look for all of those great opportunities.
I think this is a fantastic suggestion, Your Excellency, is in regard to rice. I mean, it's a staple that's seen by most people in the world, but there is no futures contract in rice, which is extraordinary, that there is no way of people actually to peg the pricing, and no futures contracts to create liquidity in that market. But there is an amazing supply chain opportunity, and we at Tingo, we have 1.1 million rice farmers amongst the 10 million farmers that we have, who regularly pay to use our app, which connects between buyers and sellers, and we would love to be able to connect those 1.1 million rice farmers to your initiative.
I'd be very happy.
Great. I think we've formed a lot of connections here, business opportunities, but also really important for the millions of people who are potentially food insecure. Gentlemen, thank you so much. We're out of time. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.